I almost stopped because the hazard lights were still flashing. If they'd been turned off, I probably would have kept driving. This happened last November while I was driving home from a job in northern Wisconsin. I install commercial kitchen equipment, and sometimes the job takes me hours away from home. That night I stayed later than planned, and by the time I got onto County Road 18, it was almost midnight. The road cut through miles of forest without a single house. No gas stations, no street lights, just trees. Occasional mailboxes and long stretches where I didn't see another car for 10 or 15 minutes. About 20 minutes into the drive, I saw flashing amber lights. An SUV was sitting half on the shoulder, half in the ditch. The driver's door was wide open, hazard lights blinking, engine off. At first I thought someone must have hit a deer. I slowed down automatically. As my headlights swept across the SUV, I looked for the driver. Nothing. No one standing beside it, no flashlight, no movement, just the open door. I pulled onto the shoulder about 50 yards behind it. I remember sitting there with my hand on the gear shift. Part of me knew I should help. The other part kept asking one question. Where's the driver? I grabbed my flashlight but stayed beside my truck. Hello? I yelled. Nothing. The woods swallowed my voice. I tried again. Anybody need help? Still nothing. That's when I noticed the footprints. The ground was soft from rain earlier that day. Fresh mud surrounded the SUV. One set of footprints led away from the driver's door towards the trees. I followed them with my flashlight. They disappeared into the woods. What bothered me wasn't that someone had walked away. It was that there was only one set. If someone had gone looking for help, why hadn't they come back? I pulled out my phone. No signal. I considered driving until I found service and calling 911. Then I heard something. A car door. Not the SUV, another one. Somewhere behind me. I spun around. My truck was still sitting there where I had left it. The driver's door was open. I knew I closed it. I always closed it. I swept my flashlight towards the road. Nothing. Just darkness. I don't know why, but every instinct I had screamed the same thing. Leave. Now. I backed towards my truck without taking my eyes off the woods. Every few seconds, I expected someone to step out. Nobody did. I jumped inside, locked the doors, and drove. Fast. About 15 minutes later, I found enough signal to call 911. I gave them the location and waited for a deputy to call me back. The deputy phoned about 40 minutes later. He thanked me for reporting it. Then he asked me something strange. Did anyone try to wave you down? No. Did you see another vehicle? No. There was a pause. When our deputies arrived, the SUV was gone. I thought he misunderstood. What do you mean gone? Gone. No tire tracks, no broken glass, no vehicle, nothing. He asked if I was sure about the location. I was. I'd even dropped a pin before losing service. The next morning, I drove back that way on my way home. I found the exact spot. The ditch was there. The skid marks were there. Even the muddy footprints leading towards the trees were still visible. But there's no sign of an SUV had ever been parked there. I never found out what happened. Maybe someone moved it before the deputies arrived. Maybe I misjudged the location by a few hundred yards. Maybe. But there's still one detail I'd never been able to explain. When I got home that morning, I noticed fresh mud on the passenger side floor mat of my truck. I hadn't opened that door all night. And when I looked closer, the mud wasn't from a boot. It was from a single bare footprint. Small, as if someone had stepped into my truck while I was standing 50 yards away looking at the abandoned SUV. I almost got out of my car because the man looked terrified. If he had sounded angry, I would have driven away immediately. But he looked scared. That's what almost got me. This happened about 3 years ago while I was driving home from visiting my parents in western Pennsylvania. It was late, almost 1 in the morning. I still had another hour and a half drive before I'd be home. My fuel light came on just outside a tiny town I've never heard of. There was only one gas station open. The kind with 4 pumps, a faded canopy, and fluorescent lights that made everything look pale. The parking lot was empty except for an older pickup parked near the air pump. I pulled into the pump 3. The silence was the first thing I noticed. No music, No traffic, no insects. Just a low hum of the overhead lights. I shut my car off, grabbed my wallet, and stepped out. Before I even reached the pump, I heard someone yell, "Hey!" I turned around. A man was jogging towards me from the side of the building. Mid-30s, jeans, gray hoodie, no weapon. He looked completely normal, breathing hard. "You've got to help me," he said. "My little girl's hurt." He pointed toward the back of the station. "My phone's dead. I need help getting her into your car." Without thinking, I looked where he pointed. I couldn't see anyone, just darkness behind the building. Something felt off. Not because of him, because of the gas station. The clerk inside hadn't looked up once. He was standing behind the counter staring straight ahead. Didn't wave, didn't react, didn't even glance toward us. I looked back at the man. "Where is she?" "Behind the building. Can you bring her here?" He hesitated. "She can't walk." That answer should have made me move. Instead, it made me think. If your child is seriously hurt, why are you leaving them alone? Why aren't you carrying them? Why are you asking a stranger to follow you? I took one slow step backward. "I'll call 911. His expression changed instantly. Not angry, disappointed. "No," he said quietly. "There's no time." I pulled my phone out anyway. As soon as he saw it, he stopped walking completely. Just stood there, watching me. I dialed 911. The screen flashed. No service. He smiled. Not a crazy smile, just like he expected that. I got back into my car, locked the doors, started the engine. He never chased me, never yelled, never banged on the windows. He simply watched me leave. About 12 miles down the road, I finally got a signal. I called state police. I explained everything. The dispatcher asked me one question. "What gas station?" I told her the name. There was a long silence. Then she said something I still think about. "Stay where you are." A trooper met me about 20 minutes later. He drove back with me. The gas station was still open. The clerk was still inside, but the man was gone. The trooper spoke to the clerk while I waited outside. When he came back, he asked if I noticed the security cameras. I told him no. "There aren't any," he said. That station hadn't worked cameras in years. Then he asked if the man had actually mentioned his daughter's name. I realized he hadn't, or her age, or what was wrong with her. Nothing. Just, "My little girl's hurt." The clerk eventually admitted something. People occasionally stopped there late at night claiming someone had approached them asking for help. Every description was slightly different. Different clothes, different ages, same story. Someone injured behind the building. Police never caught anyone. There wasn't enough evidence to prove a crime. Maybe it was one person, maybe several. I don't know. I never saw the man again. But I stopped automatically helping strangers that night. Not because I don't want to, because now, whenever someone desperately wants me to get out of my car, I ask myself one question first. If the emergency is real, why aren't they coming toward the light? I didn't realize someone had been following me until I accidentally drove past my own house. Looking back, I think they were counting on me going straight home. This happened about 5 years ago after I worked a double shift at a warehouse outside Nashville. I clocked out just after midnight. By the time I grabbed something to eat and got on the highway, it was about 1 a.m. The road's practically empty. About 20 minutes, I noticed a pair of headlights behind me. Nothing unusual. Late night traffic was always light. Eventually, I turned off the highway onto a 2-lane county road. The headlights turned too. Still, not unusual. There were only 2 roads to my neighborhood. About 5 minutes later, I slowed to a 4-way stop. No other cars. The headlights stopped behind me. I turned left. They turned left. That's when I started paying attention. I drove another mile, turned right. They turned right. I remember telling myself to stop being paranoid. Maybe we were neighbors. Then I made a turn nobody would normally make. Instead of heading towards my subdivision, I turned onto an industrial parkway that was completely empty at night. Warehouses, loading docks, no houses, no businesses open. No reason for anyone to be there. The headlights turned in behind me. Every hair on my arm stood up. I didn't speed away. I didn't slam on the brakes. I just kept driving. The industrial park looped in a large circle before reconnecting to the main road. I completed the entire loop. The car behind me never passed. Never flashed its lights. never honked, just stayed exactly 4 or 5 car lengths behind me. At that point, I knew. This wasn't coincidence. I picked up my phone. No battery. It had died while I was using GPS earlier that night. I thought about driving home anyway. Then I imagined pulling into my driveway, the other car pulling in behind me. Whoever was inside knowing exactly where I lived. Instead, I headed toward the nearest police station. At least I tried to. Halfway there, the headlights disappeared. I looked in the mirror. Nothing. The road behind me was empty. I actually laughed. I felt ridiculous. Maybe they finally turned off somewhere. Maybe I overreacted. 5 minutes later, I reached the police station. It was closed. Not abandoned, just closed. The lobby didn't open until morning. There was an emergency phone outside the entrance. As I walked toward it, the same headlights slowly rolled past the station. They didn't stop. They didn't slow down. They just drove by. The driver never looked at me. At least I don't think they did. I called 911 from the emergency phone. An officer arrived about 10 minutes later. He took my statement and asked if I'd gotten a look at the car. I told him it was dark. Maybe a gray sedan, maybe black. I honestly couldn't tell. Then he asked me something. Did they try to pass you? No. Did they ever get close? No. He nodded. They weren't trying to run you off the road. They were trying to see where you lived. That sentence stuck with me. The officer escorted me home. Nothing else happened that night. About a week later, I installed a security camera above my garage, mostly for peace of mind. 2 months passed. Then one Saturday morning, I was scrolling through old motion alerts, deleting clips of raccoons and neighborhood cats. One video caught my attention. It had been recorded the Tuesday after the night I was followed. At 2:43 in the morning, a sedan slowly drove past my house. It never stopped. But just before it left the frame, the brake lights came on. Only for a second. Long enough for the passenger window to roll down. Someone pointed a flashlight towards my house. The car drove away. The camera couldn't read the license plate. Police never identified the vehicle. I eventually moved, not because of that one night, because I could never convince myself it only happened once. Now, whenever I think someone's following me, I don't drive faster. I don't drive home. I keep driving, because I'd rather waste 20 minutes circling empty roads than spend years wondering who learned my address that night.